Okay, so Clockstoppers. This is another movie that I didn't grow up watching. It came out when I was a really little kid, and even as I got older, I don't even really remember this movie ever playing on TV at all. Then again, I didn't have cable, and I'm sure if it played on TV, it would have only played on Nickelodeon, which I did not get as a kid very much. So I am reviewing this movie as a first-time viewer. I literally just finished watching it. And as somebody who's almost a quarter of a century old, I'm almost 25, so I'm not a kid. So I'm reviewing this from the perspective of somebody who's almost 25. And I think this movie has a really fun concept. I really enjoyed it. But in some ways, it has not aged well. In some ways, you can tell that this movie came out 20 years ago, mainly due to the style. It has a style that's very reminiscent of other family films like this that were coming out around this time. The first one that comes to mind mainly is Spy Kids, though this one is geared a bit more towards an older demographic than Spy Kids, but it also has a lot more of the 2000s family movie tropes that at this point, now that it's a lot of time has passed, at the time they weren't cliches, but now they are. These are family movie cliches, because every movie's done this in this time period. Now, the main character who has a strained relationship with his parent or parents, and then there's the girl that they try to give him chemistry with, but it ends up being a little bit more cringy than it is cute, because they really don't have that much chemistry. There's a villain who's somewhat cartoonish. Like I said, the film has some really good ideas, but the execution of them isn't really done in a way that makes it stand out from other similar films around the time that this came out. Now, I really like the concept of there's this little science watch that you can freeze time with, and you're the only one that doesn't get affected by it. Like, that's a really cool idea, but the way it's done is kind of generic. Though I'm sure at the time this was original. And, French Stewart, he really brings this movie down. I really think he should have gotten someone else for the role. But despite the somewhat dated aspects of a lot of it, and some of the questionable casting choices, I still kind of enjoyed this film. I thought it was fun. It had some style to it. And I thought the story was actually pretty creative for the most part. I would still recommend it. Just know, if you're a first-time viewer, it is very much a product of the times. You're going to get those early 2000s tropes, those early 2000s cliches, the fashion, the soundtrack. Get through all that, and you'll probably have a good time with it. I certainly did. So I would say Clockstoppers gets a B, an 8 out of 10, and a 3.5 out of 5 stars.